Lord, you said if I speak to that mountain and I tell that mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea. And if I believed in my heart that the mountain would be removed, that the mountain would be moved. It would be removed. And I remember saying, move the mountain, Lord. Hey there, it's Baina, and I bring faith-based encouragement, inspiration, and pep talks to your neck of the woods. Today I want to talk to you about speaking to your mountain. Speaking to the mountain. Whatever it is that's in the way of you stepping out and doing what God has called you to do. Whatever it is that might be blocking some progress that you've been believing God for, and you know it's a mountain that's just in your way and you just need it to be removed. So I'll tell you a story. Back in 2006, when we were in the process, in the thick of it, of losing our home, very dark season for me, but a very, a season where I learned so much. I learned so much about God. I learned so much about my faith. I learned about what I did have and what I didn't have in terms of faith. But we were believing to sell our house in a short sale versus a full foreclosure. We were dealing with a wonderful realtor who was so helpful, and she went for us and petitioned the bank to allow us to do a short sale. We had enough time. We were very proactive with what was happening, and I didn't want to just ride it out like some suggested. Just ride it out, let them put you out. I'm not doing that. No. I needed to leave with some sense of some sort of dignity for myself. That's what it felt like for me and my family. And so we were believing that, we stood in agreement, my husband and I, that the bank would find favor on us and allow us to do this short sale. The realtor even told the bank that because of the kind of real estate she was in, she felt confident that she could find someone to buy the house in a short sale. So we're waiting, we're praying, we're believing that they're going to come back and say yes, and they come back and say no. And I remember thinking, we were on our way, I was on my way to take my daughter to dance class, and I was just thinking, why would they say no? It's a perfectly, good opportunity, and she even, said that she had a buyer. She had a buyer, and they still said no. And I remember thinking, all the way to dance, it was just playing in my head, right? And I remember letting my daughter go upstairs to dance, and I got back in the car, and I just began to talk to God about this mountain. And I know God is a good God, and I know the mountain wasn't God. The mountain was the enemy trying to stop us from what God had for us and what we were believing for. And so I began to talk to the mountain, right? I began to talk to the mountain, but I was talking to God as well. And I was coming boldly to the throne, not disrespectful at all, but reminding God what he promised us, reminding God of what his word says, and giving the enemy notice, like, you're not going to win this. And I reminded God, I said, Lord, you said if I speak to that mountain and I tell that mountain, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea. And if I believed in my heart that the mountain would be removed, that the mountain would be moved. It would be removed. And I remember saying, move the mountain, Lord. Move the mountain, Lord. And I spoke to that mountain all the way home. I wonder if people driving beside me were wondering, who is she talking to? I was talking to my daddy, and I was putting him in remembrance of his word, like he said. And I remember all the way home, I spoke to that mountain. I commanded that mountain to be thou removed. And I believed with every fiber of my being that that mountain had to move because God said so. And when we got home, I remember the realtor just apologizing because the bank said no. The bank said no. No thanks. And she was so apologetic. She was like, oh, I'm sorry, because it was like our last ditch effort. Well, by the time I spoke to that mountain, and by the time I finished talking to God, and by the time I just reestablished myself in his word, and I got home, I took my shoes off and sat down, and the phone rang. And it was the realtor. You know what she said? She said, I don't know what just happened, but the bank just called me back and they agreed to a short sale. That is the God we serve. That is the God you serve. Speak to your mountain. Speak to your mountain and tell that mountain to be thou removed. Put God in remembrance of his word. Let him show up for you. Let him show up for you. And the more you get more winds under your belt and you see that your words and God's word line up together, and the magic that it creates because it's his promise, the more you have more wins like that, the more confident you are to go to him the next day. The more confident the next time you have to speak to a mountain, you're so much more confident, because your confidence doesn't rely in the mountain being removed or moved. Your confidence is relying upon Jesus and what he promised. So I encourage you today to speak to your mountain. Speak to your mountain and believe in your heart and watch that mountain move.